You've heard the stories, right? For decades, it's been one of the world's greatest, most chilling unsolved mysteries. This one patch of ocean where compasses supposedly go wild, and where ships and planes just vanish. Today, we're diving deep into the legend of the Bermuda Triangle. Man, it kinda sounds like the start of a riddle, doesn't it? I mean, on one hand, you've got 5 cutting-edge torpedo bombers from the Second World War. On the other, a huge U.S. Navy cargo ship from World War I. Totally different times, completely different technologies. So what's the connection? Yep. That's where our story really begins. Not just with these 2 famous incidents, but with this whole mythology that's been built up around this one specific corner of the Atlantic Ocean, a place that's earned a pretty sinister nickname. Okay. So before we get into the science and, some of the skepticism, we really need to understand the legend itself. What exactly is this place, and why are people so creeped out by it? So let's get our bearings. This is it, the infamous triangle. Geographically speaking, we're talking about a huge, pretty vaguely defined area of the North Atlantic that connects Bermuda, the Florida coast, and Puerto Rico. Now, you won't find it on any official map, but it is for sure on the map of our collective imagination. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, they put it pretty bluntly. And that's the key to the whole legend, right? It's not just accidents. It's mysterious vanishings. We're talking total unexplained disappearances, often without a single distress call or even a scrap of wreckage left behind. And when you have a mystery this big, the explanations, well, they tend to get a little wild. People have blamed absolutely everything from alien abductions and portals to other dimensions to the lost city of Atlantis itself. I mean, these are the spectacular movie-level theories that turned a patch of ocean into a global phenomenon. But look, these fantastic theories didn't just pop out of thin air. They were born from some very real and very tragic events. So let's take a look at the famous cases that really built the triangle's terrifying reputation. Even though the legend feels like it's been around forever, it really took hold right in the middle of the 20th century. You can see this string of high-profile incidents, especially there in the late 1940s, that just cemented this idea that something was terribly, terribly wrong in this part of the world. Okay. This right here is the absolute classic Bermuda Triangle story. You've got 5 Avenger torpedo bombers flown by a mix of experienced pilots and trainees. They take off from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, for what should have been a simple 3-hour navigation exercise. They were supposed to fly east, do some bombing practice, turn north, and then head back southwest to base. Simple. But they never came home. First, just think about the shocking scale of it. Not one plane, but an entire flight of 5 military aircraft. And with them, 14 men just gone without a trace. But believe it or not, the tragedy didn't even end there. A search plane, a PBM Mariner with its 13-man crew, was sent out to find them, and it also vanished that very same night. The final heartbreaking tally, 6 aircraft and 27 men all gone in just a matter of hours. Now, decades before Flight 19, there was an even greater loss of life, the USS Cyclops. This was a massive ship over 500 feet long, carrying a super heavy load of manganese ore from Brazil up to Baltimore. It made an unscheduled stop in Barbados, and then just sailed north into oblivion. No SOS call, no wreckage, nothing. But here's where the story gets really interesting, because the mystery starts to unravel a bit when you look closer. This ship was not in good shape. It was overloaded. The cargo wasn't balanced right, making it top-heavy. It had a known design flaw that made it unstable. One of its engines was damaged, and inspectors in Barbados found it was already taking on tons of water. You start to see that the Cyclops was in serious trouble long before it ever met its final fate. All right. So for putting aliens in the lost city of Atlantis on the shelf for a minute, what could actually be going on out there? Scientists and researchers have come up with a few natural explanations for the region's supposed dangers, moving us away from the supernatural and into the scientific. Okay, this one is pretty wild. The theory goes that huge bubbles of methane gas could just erupt from the ocean floor. And if a ship happened to be right on top of one of these eruptions, the water beneath it would instantly lose its density. It would literally turn to foam. The ship would lose all its buoyancy and just sink like a stone straight to the bottom in seconds. Now here's a more complex idea that sounds a bit like science fiction, but stick with me. It involves some unique atmospheric conditions. Some research suggests that powerful electromagnetic fields may be created by clouds of plasma could form in the area, and these fields would be strong enough to completely scramble compasses and other electronic instruments on ships and planes, basically leading pilots and captains totally astray. But maybe, just maybe, the most powerful and honestly the most likely explanation has been right in front of us the whole time. The triangle sits at the crossroads of some of the most violent weather on the entire planet. You've got the Gulf Stream, which is like a river inside the ocean that can create sudden extreme storms out of nowhere. And on top of that, it's a natural highway for hurricanes. These aren't mysterious forces. They're incredibly powerful and incredibly deadly forces of nature. So we've seen the legend, we've looked at the tragedies, and we've explored the scientific theories. But that brings us to the biggest question of all. Is there even a mystery here to solve in the first place? I mean, after all the stories, all the scary movies, all the speculation, what does the evidence actually say? Are more ships and planes really lost here than anywhere else? Let's get down to the facts. This quote from The Guardian really just gets right to the point. The original article that actually coined the term Bermuda Triangle back in 1964 by a writer named Vincent Gaddis. Well, it's been accused of being full of mistakes and just plain making stuff up. So the very foundation of the modern legend might just be bad journalism. And what about the official organizations? The people who are actually out there on these waters every single day. The U.S. Navy and the Coast Guard are crystal clear. They do not believe in supernatural causes. For them, these incidents are tragic, for sure, but they're explainable by a combination of severe weather and human error. In fact, the U.S. government doesn't even officially recognize Bermuda Triangle as a real place. So let's just break it all down side by side. The myth, alien abductions, and strange forces. The reality, frequent hurricanes, monster rogue waves, and the powerful Gulf Stream. The myth of a strangely high rate of disappearances. The reality is, there's just no evidence of that. For such a heavily trafficked area of the ocean, it doesn't have more accidents than any other busy area. And what about the great mystery of Flight 19? The reality is, the flight leader's compass has failed. He got completely disoriented. And tragically, he let his flight further out to sea until they all ran out of fuel. The supernatural story gives way to a simple but deadly combination of nature's power and human fallibility. And all of that leaves us with one final kind of mind-bending thought. Maybe the real enigma here isn't about lost ships or strange energies at all. Maybe it's about our own deep love for a good mystery and how a really compelling story can sometimes feel more powerful, more real than the facts themselves. Why do we want to believe? Now that might be the real question.